Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I feel super anxious today because I haven't filmed in a while, but today we have a wrap up. I read 10 books in August and today I'm just going to go through all of them with you, see what I recommend and what I don't, and this is all in my opinion, so if you like those books, great for you. If you don't like what I like, it's okay. Let's go ahead and start with my analytics. My genre breakdown is I read 5 thrillers / mystery books, I read 1 romance, 3 fantasy and 1 dystopian. Altogether, I read 3,730 pages, which kind of plus minus equates to like 124 pages a day. So with that being said, I think I had a really good month. I was pushing myself quite a bit just because I thought I hadn't read as much as I did, because I only did, I think, 2 videos like reading blogs this month. So I thought I hadn't read any or that many, but I ended up reading quite a bit on my Kindle as well, which will be the first book. Actually, I deleted them off my library because I made space for new books. So I actually don't have that to hold up, but I will naturally pop a picture up. So we started off the month with a thriller. I just saw it on like the Kindle Unlimited shop page and I thought it looked interesting enough. Interesting enough is The Girl Who Was Taken by Charlie Donlier. This was, like I said, a thriller and it's kind of taboo. It touches on a lot of subjects. So if you were to read this, I'd say read trigger warnings first because there's SA, kidnapping, all of that in it. It follows our main female character, Nicole, and then another female character which is on a different timeline and her name is Megan. Megan and Nicole are rivals at school. They both kind of like the same guy and the guy had broken up with Nicole during the summer and now is dating Megan. So both of them end up being kidnapped and Megan is the only one who makes it out. She somehow escapes, but the story of how she escaped is quite convoluted, or she's just been hiding and lying about it. She ends up writing a book about having survived being kidnapped, but all of it was kind of inflated to sell a book. But we go through the journey of her telling the story, thinking back, and then also like Nicole's family, they are still looking for her and the town has somehow just given up on her because Megan was this superstar athlete, cheerleader, honor student, and when she came back everybody kind of forgot about Nicole. So it just follows that journey. It's very, very interesting. I felt like at times it made me feel uncomfortable and really weird, but the twist at the end really got me and I would 100% recommend this book if you like those type of books that is a little bit more heavier. So that was a 4-star for me. I thought it was pretty good. It was really fast paced. I was annoyed. You know that frustrated feeling when people just make stupid mistakes and you're like, come on, think this through. But I understand that especially in that situation, you would act on impulse. Next, this was for a vlog reading pink books and I read Followers. I don't know if the light is washing that out. Let's dim the light slightly. There we go. I read Followers by Megan Angelo and this is a dystopian type thriller. I've spoken about this so much. I would suggest going to watch my video if you want to kind of know all my thoughts on it, but I would 100% recommend this, especially if you're someone who is looking to get into social media or kind of, your life revolves around social media. This is great. So it follows our main female character in one timeline in 2051 and her name is Marlo. They live in a time now where technology is different. They had an incident called the Spill where it was literally upheaval and the internet was like shut down for a few years. In this new society, they have this town called Constellation and the whole town is basically like Big Brother. So Marlo is the star of the show and everybody else is placed in her path on purpose, but she doesn't want this life anymore. Everything is done by chips in their arm and like projection in their heads, like a lot of dystopian things are. But once she is well, the producers of the show decide she now needs to become pregnant, they don't actually do the deed to get pregnant. They build the baby in the lab. They're trying to get the characteristics correct and all of this, and she doesn't want her mother part of it. Her mother's name is Floss. So she doesn't want her mother part of it because her mom's a little bit loopy and she's not looking after herself. And her dad's like got this illness that they have called the fog, which is basically like dementia. And the fog is actually caused by too much exposure to blue light. So phones and devices and stuff like that. All the older generation, or millennials, they call them actually millennials in the book, they all start to get this fog. Marlo somehow manages to escape this, and she's trying to find her birth parents because something about her birth is not adding up. And then in the current time, well, it's like 2016, we're following Orla and Floss, who come together because Orla is a like social media manager, and she follows people and sends out tweets and writes reports about them and articles about them, and her and Floss somehow their paths coincide and they devise a plan to make Floss famous, even though she doesn't come from a famous background or she hasn't done anything. So they devise this whole plan to make money. Floss just ends up double crossing Orla, but the end was so good. It was so heartwarming. I ended up tabbing it as well, and it was really good, and I feel like it's an important book for us all to read. This one I gave a 4 stars just because it kind of dragged out a little bit. Like, the spill was mentioned a few times, but it takes a little bit to understand why the spill happened, when it happened, what it caused. So that took a little bit of a drawn out time, but I really enjoyed Marlo's point of view because it was all the way in the future, and the way she managed to navigate it. I really enjoyed this, but that's all I'm gonna say about it for now. Next we have, I don't have the dust jacket on right now, but we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm sorry I didn't like it. Like, I know that everybody, should I put the dust jacket on? I'm not in the mood. I'm gonna face it like this. So everybody and their mother loves this book, but I just found it boring. It's not really about anything specific. It's centered around grief and relationships and friendships, which is great, but that's not really what I signed up for, nor is it the type of book I enjoy to read. It's about Harriet and Wynne, her boyfriend. They meet in college, but she has this group of girlfriends and they all like kind of intertwine and they become like their own found family. They go to this beach house every year in Maine for their summer holidays, and this year, unfortunately, herself and Wynne had actually broken up and they're gonna have to fake date. But she didn't expect Wynne to be there, but her friends had kind of conned them into both coming. Her friend Sabrina is gonna get married, so they all come together and they fake date. But there's just a lot of miscommunication and a lot of like not actually communicating your feelings, and I just found it very boring and very mundane. There were bits that I really enjoyed, especially like the end when it all came together. I did enjoy that. It was very heartfelt. I had a little tear jerk at that time, but ultimately, personally, if your book taste is in any way aligned with mine, this was boring and I could have read something else. So I don't think I'll read any more of Emily Henry books because I know that I know I've heard that most of her storylines are like this, so it's just not for me and not the type of reader I am. I like fantasy, I like dystopian, I like mysteries, and this is just very mundane and boring in my opinion. I gave this a 3-star. Initially, I thought 3.5 because I did enjoy the ending, but after my whole vlog, I thought about it and I didn't think about this book at all, but Followers definitely was thinking about that. So I decided to give this 3 stars. Next, in the same vlog, I read The It Girl by Ruth Ware. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this either. Like I said, I love mystery thrillers, but this one was so drawn out. I think it was like 420 pages. Half of this stuff didn't need to be in there. It was more like a character study and getting to know all the people, where I feel like a thriller needs to be a little bit more fast-paced, get to the point. It also had a then and now timeline, which is fine, but it was just too complicated for what the actual story was. So it follows our our main female character, Hannah, who goes to college, ends up moving in with her dorm mate, who is April, and April is the it girl. She has loads of money. She always dresses really nicely. She has Dom Perignon in her little bar fridge. Like, everybody wants to be her friend. Everybody wants to know, and her and Hannah end up getting along really, really well. April is a prankster, and she loves to pull pranks and just do stupid shit all the time, and she pulls pranks on all her friends, and then she ends up dead. Hannah saw someone leaving the scene of the crime when she discovered the body. She testified against him, and her testimony put him in jail, and he ended up dying. So after he's died, a journalist comes to her and brings up all the facts, like that there was no evidence, there was no fingerprints, there was none of these things, and she didn't see him come out the room. She just saw him run down a set of stairs, and it ends up that they convicted the wrong person, and now April is trying to find out who this person is. Through this, she gets herself in some really tricky situations, but like I said, it was just too drawn out. It could have been like 300 pages and it would have still been interesting, but it just went on and on and on, and she's now suspicious of everybody in her life, and everybody's under scrutiny, and it was just too much. So this is my first experience with Ruth Ware, and if that's what her books are written like, no thank you, I opt out. So I ended up giving this a 2-star. Then the next book I read was a reread, and I again have a vlog on it that actually went up last week. I reread Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I did really enjoy this book much more the second time round. The first time round, it was just mundane, boring, and I was like, there were too many plot holes as well. But the second time round, I kind of already knew what happened, so I enjoyed the flow of the book better. Still those same issues. This time round, I ended up giving it a 4-star, whereas before it was 3.5. This is like Hunger Games / The Selections put together in a book, and there are a lot of examples where she has, I wouldn't say plagiarized, but she took inspiration from The Selection as well as Hunger Games, but the story was still entertaining enough to keep me going. It follows our main female character, Payton, who is an ordinary, and in this world they have all these powers. You have elite powers, which are like the best, then you have mundane powers, which are like, you know, people have them, and then you have ordinaries who kind of don't have any powers, and they're trying to get rid of them and eradicate them from the kingdom because the king has convinced everybody that they are diseased, and you know, if you come into contact with them, you will lose your elite power. But it's all brainwashed. She ends up meeting Kai, who is actually the prince and the future enforcer. So he's like the captain of the army, and you know, he's basically responsible for killing all the ordinaries. But then every year they have these purging trials, which was actually born from killing ordinaries, but first they used to just use mundane people for that, and now the elites also like challenge and they kill each other, but it's 3 rounds of trials. Payton is posing as a psychic, so she just goes through all these motions, having to kind of hide who she is, because if they find out that she doesn't have powers, she's gonna die. Ended up giving this a 4-star. Then I read the little novella in between Powerless and Reckless. Really loved this book. 120% recommend. So good. It's only like 250 pages and I gave it 4 stars. I was gonna give it 4.5 stars, but there isn't enough context, but it was so good. I sobbed at the end because I did see it coming, because I knew the ending of Powerless. It kind of links in with this, but the story of Adina, who is Payton's best friend, and the things that she went through while Payton was away in the trials, it was very heartfelt. Oh my gosh, so wholesome, and I loved this book so much, and I also loved her character. Very good, really loved it. Can't tell you too much because obviously it will be a spoiler because of the first book if you have not read that, but 4 stars. And then I read Reckless, and this, pleasantly surprised. Oh my god, I enjoyed this book so much. I read it in 2 days, and it's also like 400 and I want to say 80 pages. No, it's not even. It's 388 pages, but I read this so quickly and I was so enthralled, and it kept my attention. It was fast moving. There was lots of banter. It was like a cat and mouse type of feel between Kai and Payton, and oh my gosh, I absolutely ate this up. I know a lot of people didn't like this, which made me feel like I would, and I really did. So 4.5 stars. Again, I can't tell you too much about it. If you haven't read Powerless, you won't really understand, and it will spoil it too much, but I recommend. It is so, so good, and I'm so excited to read the next book. The next book I read was actually an audiobook, so is it reading? I'm not sure, but usually when I do an audiobook, it's because I'm doing tasks or chores or whatever. And then when I have a time where I can actually sit and read, I'll listen to the audio and follow along with the book. It just helps me read a bit quicker. It's reading. It's reading in my opinion. But I read Hush Little Baby by Suzanne Redfern. This one was just like a palate cleanser for me between reading obviously powerful and a heavy like fantasy, not that heavy, but a more heavy fantasy book. And then I just wanted to break it up, so I read Hush Little Baby, and this is kind of, again, lots of trigger warning. It's about another like domestic violence victim. She's trying to get away from her husband, so she kind of kidnaps her children and goes on the run. But at the end, things turn and it works out in her favor. Really liked it in the sense that it was a palate cleanser, but it had no sustenance. It left me with more questions than it answered, so I ended up giving it a 2-star, but I would recommend. I just didn't like the narrator. I feel like if I had actually physically read it, I would like it a bit more. But with Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately, it's like all the like not paid for books, which I pay a subscription for. I think they just use the same narrator, and she's not that good. And every time I hear her narrating, I'm like, just want to turn it off. But that day I was doing lots of washing, cleaning my room, changing bedding, so I just put it on. It wasn't the best book I ever read, also not the worst, but like I said, I gave it a 2-star, which isn't the worst, and I still would recommend if you enjoy thrillers. After that, I read, this is a controversial one, Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. And this again touches on subjects that is not something I would recommend. So for that reason, I'm not going to give this a rating, because I feel like I am against what was written in that book, in my opinion. A lot of people saying it's about a mother's love and all this stuff. So we're following the mother of Noah. I can't remember what her name is, but his mom, her son, Noah, committed crimes against little children while he was a swim coach. But he admitted to it because he couldn't keep it inside anymore. You, at the end of it, find out he's a speedo. She is fighting tooth and nail for him. He's gone to like a reformatory school and all these things and therapy, but he knows that there's something inside him. So he ends up trying to, and then asking his mom to help him, and it's kind of just making it seem like what he's done is okay. She's like, oh, it wasn't violent, so it's not the worst thing, and I can't condone that type of behavior or that type of content. So for that reason, I haven't rated it, nor will I recommend it. I probably shouldn't have put it in here, but it adds just to my monthly reading. But I wouldn't recommend it. If you see it, steer clear. It's disturbing. Then lastly, for this month, I wrote off A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I did. I really did. So you'll see this in a vlog coming up, so I'm not going to touch on it too much. I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder last year in May. I didn't like it. I gave it a 2.5 or 3-star. It was just too long and too juvenile. I don't know. I just didn't really enjoy it that much. And I read it over like a few weeks because it couldn't grab my attention. Then the Netflix series came out, and I was sold. I really liked the series. So I ended up just picking up the second book and was like, what's the harm in this? And I've seen people not really like this book. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this a 4-star. Was it 4 or 4.5? Yeah, I ended up giving this a 4-star because I really enjoyed it. I read it quickly as well. I read this in 2 days as well, which for me, I have to enjoy a book to read it that quickly. It's 418 pages, went so quickly, loved every minute. I liked the case. I liked the fact that Pip now has a podcast. Like, it just felt present. Or present day. I've heard people say that it didn't fit into the trilogy, but I really enjoyed this. It went really quick. I really liked the fact that it was focusing not on like a whole bunch of things, and rather the case at hand and the people involved and the people in town. Like all her friends, like in the first one, it didn't play so much of a role. I don't know. I loved this so much more than the first book, and I would 100% recommend. But like I said, I do not want to say too much about it because there is a vlog coming out very very soon with me reading that. But that is all the books that I read in August. I'm very excited for my reading month in September. I have a lot of books here that I'm very excited to read. That's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know how many books you guys read this month, and also if you've read any of these books down in the comments, and I will see you all next week. Bye, guys.